Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to be very brief on this one. So, just a few hours ago, my family and I we went to see Death on the Nile, starring Kenneth Branagh, Gal Gadot, Armie Hammer, Russell Brand, Letitia Wright, and that's all that I could remember off the top of my head. So, the story is really good. It's based on the Agatha Christie novel about the detective Hercule Poirot, if I'm even saying it right. Um, but basically, it's a follow up to Murder on the Orient Express. I think it's like a standalone sequel where Kenneth Branagh, Hercule, uh, he gets invited onto this huge cruise ship called the Karnak, and he's supposed to he's basically told by Gal Gadot to keep watch of the passengers because she doesn't feel safe around any of them. And that whole thing is because Armie Hammer and Gal Gadot, they fell in love, and Armie Hammer actually broke off his engagement with this other woman at the beginning of the movie who's, I can't remember what her name is, but well, I don't remember the actress's name, but the character was named Jacqueline, Jackie, Jax. She's called all three of them. But uh, I kind of knew from the start that that she wasn't going to be the killer, or at the very least, not for the initial murder. Because in the trailer, there's actually multiple deaths that are revealed, and I already knew just from seeing the trailers that it wasn't going to be Jackie, or at the very least, it wasn't going to be her for the first murder. Because the trailers seem to make her out to be the one with the biggest beef with Armie Hammer and Gal Gadot. And in I think at least half of her scenes, she's always wearing red, and that kind of tipped me off that she was basically like a literal red herring. And that actually comes into play later on in the story, because spoiler alert, there's actually two killers. It's Jackie and it's Armie Hammer, and I figured that Armie Hammer would be the killer at least for the first victim, because the first victim is Gal Gadot. She dies within the first half hour to 45 minutes. But I already figured that Armie Hammer was going to be the killer for at least her, because it's the classic story of the husband marries the rich wife, kills the rich wife, gets the money. So I figured it was going to be that. But then there's two more deaths, and those ones are carried out by Jacqueline. And by the time the third body dropped, I kind of pieced it together that they were both in on it together. But it was still a very good story. That's what I like about detective and murder mysteries, where they don't hold your hand throughout the story, but they do leave enough clues that you can actually solve the mystery by yourself. But they don't make it too obvious, and I feel like that's what Death on the Nile did, and they did it to great effect. But and originally, I was actually going to say Jackie wearing a red dress was actually going to be a negative, because I would have said that that was going to be way too on the nose for her being a red herring. But they actually played that off beautifully, that she wasn't the one who killed Gal Gadot. Instead, it was Armie Hammer. But in another kind of twist, she ended up killing the other two people in the film. So so if that was what they were going for, having Jackie wear red as basically a symbolic red herring, that that was a genius move on the filmmaker's part. And then there was there's gonna be this other negative that I had, where at the very beginning there's this scene that's shot during World War I, where Hercule Poirot, he is he's in the trenches in no man's land with his company, and using his detective skills, he actually suggests that they attack the enemy barricade like right at that moment because of the change in the wind. But that unfortunately results in him being too late to save his captain from stepping on a trip mine, which also severely injures him like on the upper lip, which in turn causes him to like grow out his mustache. Like that's the explanation that they went with for why he has that iconic mustache from the novels. And I've never read any of the Agatha Christie novels, and I've also never seen Murder on the Orient Express. So I went into this with a fresh set of eyes, but now I really want to see Murder on the Orient Express, just to see how that one turned out. But basically, back to the prologue where they explain why Hercule Poirot got that mustache. I was prepared to say, like, I didn't really understand why they put that in there, because it seemed to be no real service to the plot, and, well, it turns out that actually did, because with that was Hercule Poirot's first love interest, who actually suggested that he gets the mustache, and the whole theme of love is played out, like, throughout the entire story, where Hercule mentions his first lover multiple times throughout the film, to like give legitimacy to like how he understands how the mind works, that love is what drives people to do things, such as love is what drove Armie Hammer and Jackie to eventually be together again and plot to kill Gal Gadot, and then cause those other murders. Love is what caused Poirot to like basically close himself off, because in his opinion, it's one of the emotions that clouds his thinking and judgment, which it kind of is. But and it also serves a purpose at the very end of the movie when he actually shaves the mustache off in the final moments to show that like he's moving on from completely closing himself off. And that was very cool. By the way, that flashback scene in the prologue and every flashback scene, they're portrayed in black and white, which just makes the film look awesome, in my opinion. And speaking of how the film is shot, like every sequence, whether they're in London or on the Karnak ship or in Egypt, every shot is just breathtaking, and just how they positioned the actors. Even in this one scene where Poirot is interrogating this one lady, it actually focuses on one character from one side of a window, and every time that like one of the characters is saying something important, such as Hercule accusing her of murder, it always does a slow pan back to Kenneth Branagh. And once he's done speaking and it's the actress's turn to speak, it does a slow pan back to her until finally Hercule Poirot is forming his conclusion, and he actually starts walking toward her, and it does a slow pan past the window towards like the wall gap where it shows nothing, and then finally to the other window with the actress, but this time Hercules steps into view to close off the distance between the two. And just the way the movie was shot and the way the story was done, I thought it was well worth the ticket price to go see in theaters. So I guess to wrap this whole thing up, I told you I was going to be brief, but to wrap this whole thing up, if you're a fan of Murder on the Orient Express, definitely go see it. If you're a fan of Kenneth Branagh, Gal Gadot, like that whole ensemble of actors and actresses, go and see it. Even if you like detective murder mysteries like Sherlock Holmes, like this is a really good film, because it kind of feels like a mix of like Sherlock Holmes, Clue, pretty much any murder mystery that you can think of. Like Death on the Nile will be satisfying for you. But that's it for me today. Hope you guys all have a good one.